Starting 8 weeks ago, the rule is game. I'm the boss here, I'll take fame with my fantasy team. Gonna rise to the top, no one can stop me. Gonna make 'em drop.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to 38 Weeks to Go, your weekly podcast about fantasy football. How was Gameweek 8 for you? Another international break, another international letdown. For 2 consecutive international breaks, the returns immediately after have been a little bit poor, if not very. I have been on a bit of a slide of late. I had 38 points 2 weeks ago. Then the last game week before the international break, I had 32 points. So when this international break came, I was like, nah, I'm done with this. I'm going to use my wild card because I was fearing getting like 10 points. I ended up with 60. While 60 isn't necessarily high for a game week and a wild card use, it's much better than the 40 points I would have gotten had my team stayed the same. I would have gotten about 43 to be precise. And having gotten 60, the highest in our group got 65. So I feel like I made the right decision. And sometimes when you score even 60 on a game week where people are averaging 20 or 23, it's a big gain. And I moved up from number 70 to like 30 or something like that. 30 something. 34 to be precise. So in the context of this game week, I am very happy with my wildcard because it yielded great results, even though I had a trash captain in the name of Haaland. But in spite of Haaland getting 4 points, my team did really well. I know you must be all wondering, what magical team did you have to get 60 points? Well, thanks for asking. Let me share with you. So, the thing I'm really proud about in my team is that I managed to get in Haaland, Palmer, Salah, Saka, and Brennan Johnson. So, as you can imagine, the rest of my team is trash. So, Haaland is my striker. Archer, thankfully scored, was my second striker along with Antonio. Then in my midfield, I had Salah, Carvalho from Brentford, Brendan Johnson from Tottenham, Palmer from Chelsea. In defense, I had Lewis from City, Keane from Everton, who was my big standard performer with 14 points, Faish from Leicester, because I thought they'd keep a clean sheet. Boy, was I wrong. And then at the back, I had the Nottingham Forest keeper, Sells, who gave me 11. That 11 was the most unexpected. Well, him and Keane, 25 points from 2 players. I know some of you are like, wow, just 2 players. But yeah, that's how my team looks. And I'm going to try and keep this team for as long as I can. Although Saka is injured, so I don't know. When I look at this team, and I look at most of our teams, the biggest problem we had is that we're all suffering from what I call an over-reliance of Haaland. It's wild because I went through this last season, the whole of last season, telling myself, I am not going to be captaining Haaland. You know, ever since he said, stay humble to Arteta, he hasn't scored in the Premier League. He scored last night against Sparta Prague in the Champions League, so maybe that means things are coming. But, guys, we just need to be brave and rotate our captains. Having said that, Man City are playing Southampton this weekend, so I want to say I'm going to change my captain, but the odds are no. The odds are that I'm going to keep Haaland as my captain because Southampton are weak. They're the bottom team, well, second bottom. And they have a philosophy of football that is unsustainable in the Premier League. And they're playing against Manchester City. So it's going to be hard not to choose Haaland as your captain. And if you're able to not choose Haaland, I really salute you. There were just 3 clean sheets this weekend. Nottingham Forest 1, Crystal Palace 0, Bournemouth 2, Arsenal 0, and Brighton 1, Newcastle 0. Maybe apart from Nottingham Forest, the other clean sheets were unexpected. Especially in the Bournemouth game. People were expecting it the other way now. I know a lot of you lost -3 thanks to Saliba. And if you've been listening, I have been saying Arsenal are having difficult fixtures coming up. I just honestly didn't think that these would be the fixtures that they would be conceding goals in. But they haven't kept a clean sheet in a while now. And it might be time to start reconsidering your options. Yes, they have a great defense, but it doesn't mean they can't concede. The highest scoring game of the weekend. Actually, there were two. The first one is Spurs, 4-1. They defeated West Ham. They hammered the Hammers. And the second one was Leicester versus Southampton. Leicester came back from 2-0 down to win 3-2. Spurs versus West Ham was an interesting game. Kudus opened the scoring, and then Kulusevski scored. At halftime, Maddison was removed, and I thought he was injured, but it turned out it was tactical. Maddison had the assist for Kulusevski's goal. However, as soon as the second half began, they just went on a rampage and scored 3 goals. And it makes you wonder. Maddison didn't particularly play poorly, but that changed. The substitution of getting him off the game changed the whole game. I wonder what that means for his future. Son was immense. He was the best player on the pitch, and they could do nothing to stop him. He deserved the goal that he scored. He was everywhere. Son is a player that scares me. He's somebody I would consider having, but I just can't trust him. He's not playing tonight in Europe because he picked up a knock, so I'm not sure if he'll be available. But I'm trying to see what to do about Saka, and I was thinking of putting that 10-point-something into Son. But we'll see how the weekend unravels. Bissouma scored, Son scored, and there was an own goal by Areola. Maddison, Udogie, and Sarr had the assists for the goal. Kudus got a red card, well deserved. He seems to be a bit angry. I guess maybe because during the international break, his team got out of qualification for the tournament. So Ghana are out. And then he comes, he scores, and then he just got angry, kicked out, putting his hand in people's faces. I don't know. West Ham are in trouble, if you ask me. I said at the beginning of the season, I don't like Lopetegui. I just don't like his tactics. I don't know why, but I've just never really been fond of his football. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he's the first manager to be fired. Bissouma had 3 bonus points, Kulusevski had 2, and Son had 1. The other high-scoring match saw Leicester take on Southampton. I previously believed that Leicester were going to have a clean sheet in this game, so I'd started fresh. Now, due to my wildcard, I needed a cheap striker. I brought in Archer. I mean, I recommended him, and so I walked the walk and talked the talk. So, this game was quite interesting. Archer scores quite early, and I'm very happy. Aribo also scores, and they're up 2-0. Manning and Walker-Peters have the assist. And then Fatau is brought on, and the game just changes. Well, it also changes after Southampton also get a red card. Ryan Fraser got a red card, and the game changed. But at that point, his foul was to stop the equalizer, which would have been 2-2. The penalty was then scored. So Bonanotte scored, then Vardy scored the penalty. Fatau was just creating so much trouble. And he created the corner that led to the Jordan Ayew's goal. And that was in the 90 plus 8th minute. And they won this game. Southampton are looking like early relegation favourites. I mean, they were, but they're looking really bad. Not quite Sheffield bad, but like they're friends, like they live in the same place. Winks and Fatawu had the assists. Archer had the 3 bonus points. Aribo had 2. And Vardy had 1. The most surprising result of the weekend was Bournemouth 2, Arsenal 0. Saliba got a red card. That was the most important event in this game because that's ultimately what changed the outcome of this game. He held back Evan Nilsson, who was clear. I wouldn't say clear on goal, but he was ahead of him and there was no one close. So he was the last man. And after VAR checked it out, they said, kick him out. And so he was sent off. It was weird because, I don't know, VAR and these red cards, it's not clear what the criteria is. It feels more feelingy than factually. But anyway, Arsenal fans will feel like that was harsh. Other fans will be like, it's football, until that happens to their team. Christie scored a really good goal off a set piece, which was quite interesting because Arsenal have been the ones destroying people with their set pieces. But it was a very clever move. If you haven't seen the goal, check it out. Now, Trossard gave a bad back pass, which is what led to Evan Nilsson being clear because he would have been offside either way. And then Kiwior gave a bad pass, which resulted in a penalty that Kluivert scored. So I've been talking about how football sometimes is just about mistakes. And it shows you Arsenal made 2 mistakes and were punished twice. Senesi got the 3 bonus points, Kluivert got 2, and Kakes got 1. The marquee game of the weekend. So Liverpool take on Chelsea. In the past, there have been very many draws in this fixture, so I was a bit worried that it would be a dull match, but it turned out to be a quite entertaining affair. Liverpool won 2-1, but more important, it's such an interesting outcome because I feel that Chelsea showed that they are a much better team than they were last season, and I also feel that Liverpool showed that they're also doing well under Slot. This was probably their first real challenge, and they handled it well. Both teams have reason to feel confident about the future, even though there was a clear winner and a loser. Salah scored a penalty, and there were so many calls that could have gone either way in this game. I'm surprised that the calls that were given, and the ones that weren't given. It didn't make any sense. And that's why I'm saying that these calls make me feel like these guys are just going on their feelings instead of like some clear rules. Anyway, Curtis Jones and Mo Salah scored for Liverpool. And Curtis Jones and Mo Salah had the assists for Liverpool. Nicholas Jackson had the goal for Chelsea. He's having a good season. And Caicedo had the assist for Chelsea. Now, this season, it's looking like a lot of the budget strikers are really doing well. Of course, 7 isn't quite budget, but you have Nicholas Jackson who's doing well. You have Wood who's doing well. You have Raul Jimenez who's doing well. And Delap is also doing well. Anyway, when it comes to the bonus, Curtis Jones got all 3 bonus points. Mo Salah got 2 and Nicholas Jackson got 1. So, let's look at the top performing players of the weekend. As usual, it will be the top 5 or the people who have gotten over 10 points. In keeping, Sales from Forest had 11. Verbruggen from Brighton got 10. Martinez from Aston Villa got 8. And then you have Kepa and Pickford with 6 each. When it comes to defenders, Keane was a top-performing defender. He got 14 points. Number 2, Vardiol with 10 points. Senesi and Stones were tied for 9 points. And in number 5, you have Murillo from Nottingham Forest, who got 8 points. When it comes to midfield, Curtis Jones was a top midfielder, 13 points. Salah, 12 points. Kluivert had 11. And then Garnacho and Bissouma tied for fifth, or rather for fourth, with 10 points. When it comes to forwards, Danny Welbeck continues his impressive run, and he had 9 points, tied with Yeahh from Everton, and Archer and Strand Larsen, who all got 9. And then in fifth place, it's another tie between Watkins and Haaland, who got 8. So just as I previously stated, budget strikers are doing well. So let me read you some random stats. Luis Diaz was the most sold player ahead of Gameweek 8, with over 200,000 people removing him. The two most popular replacements for Diaz were Brennan Johnson and Brian Mbeumo, who both misperformed. So far in the Premier League, Haaland has the most goals with 10, Saka has the most assists with 7, Onana has the most clean sheets with 4, Haaland has had the most shots with 35, Saka has created the most chances with 27, Bednarek has had the most passes with 592, and Didi from Leicester has the most tackles won with 18. Lisandro Martinez and Virgil van Dijk have completed the most interceptions, and Flynn Downs has covered the most distance in the Premier League this season. After Arsenal were beaten by Bournemouth this weekend, Manchester City remain as the only unbeaten club in the Premier League this season. Bournemouth's 2-0 victory gave Arsenal their first away loss in 2024. What a record. Mr. Saliba, who got sent off, is now Arsenal's 18th red card in the Premier League since Arteta's first game as manager. That's 5 more red cards than any other team in that same period. Since he started in Gameweek 4, Raul Jimenez has either scored or assisted in each game since then. He's in great form. Brennan Johnson was the most transferred in player for this game week. He failed to replay us managers, me included, as he blanked for the first time since Game Week 4. Leicester and Manchester City are the only teams to have scored in every game so far. Ayew's goal, that was a game winner for Leicester, is Leicester's latest ever goal in 90 plus 8 minutes. Kulusevski has scored 17 goals since coming to England. All of them are from inside the box. Arsenal have only dropped points this season when they're down to 10 men. Son's goal was his 20th in the London derby. Also, with the goal Son scored, that takes him into the top 20 Premier League goal scorers of all time. Top 20. He has been a great Premier League player. With Watkins' goal against Fulham, he has now scored against them 6 times. Manchester City like to make things tough. In 4 of their 7 games this season, they have conceded the first goal. Manchester City are now unbeaten in 31 games. Salah is now 9th in Premier League top scorers of all time. Vardiol's equaliser for Man City means he's now the top scoring defender in the Premier League. In 2024, he has scored 6 goals in this calendar year. Not season, calendar year. The top transfers in this week are Vardiol with 291,000 people bringing him in. Number 2 is Son with 261 managers bringing him in. Mbeumo is number 3 with 250,000 managers bringing him in. Raul Jimenez, 195,000 people bringing him in. Palmer, 174,000 bringing him in. Top players out. And it may or may not surprise you that Arsenal players are the top of this list. Saliba, 491,000 people have removed him. Saka, 439,000 have removed him. Luis Diaz, 257,000 have removed him. Havertz, 110,000 have removed him. People are done with Emil Smith-Rowe. 99,000 people have removed him. Haaland was the most selected person as captain. Salah was the most vice-captain player. Haaland is the most selected player in this season's FPL. There were 111,000 triple captains played, but the number one team was a bench boost team, which shows you that none of these triple captains hit. There were free hits, 64,000 taken, 65,000 bench boosts, 221,000 wildcards were played. Keane was the best player of the week. The average points for the week was 36. So if you got that, well done. The highest points globally was 98. As previously stated, this person had bench boost. They're called St. Patrick's Drunks. Welbeck was a striker. Nicholas Jackson, second striker. Midfield, he had Salah, who was his captain, 24 points. Welbeck got 9. Nicholas Jackson got 6. Palmer got 2. Garnacho had 10. McNeil had 6. Bernardo Silva had 2. Gabriel had 1. Vardiol had 10. Pedro Porro had 2. And Pickford had 6. On the bench, he had Sells, Mazrui, Vardy, and Robertson. Sells gave him 11. Mazrui 1. Vardy 6. And Robertson 2. When looking at our table, our most unlucky manager, I guess, was Clinton Ouko, manager of Team Bazu. His captain was Saliba, which gave him -6. In terms of weird captain choices, apart from Saliba, somebody had Calvert-Lewin, somebody has KDB, somebody had Foden, Bruno Fernandes, Isak. Those are the most random captains. Can you believe Son was only chosen as a captain by one person? The team with the most goal scorers this week was Dubois' Originals. He had 5 different goal scorers in his team. Dubois also gained 16 points from the transfers he brought. Well done. I don't know if it's unlucky, but in terms of unluckiest managers, Dennis Com, he underperformed. Speaking of unlucky managers, I just previously praised Mr. Dubois. His team had 25 points on the bench. Keane had 14. Strand Larsen had 9. And Sanchez had 2. But it's those 2 that were the main killers. Painful. You know how I used my wild card and I got 60 points? Well, on the other end, we have Mr. Melito Elvis, manager of Ole FC. He used his wild card, and had he not changed anything, he would have had 25 more points. He got 19 points with a wild card. That is painful. Another man who used their wild card is Randy Agusta, manager of Dandaman Borneo. They got 33 points, but would have got 18 points more had they just stayed with their previous team. We have been talking about a struggling man, Bonaji, manager of Pepe Kali. He has been struggling for a while now, and this is the 7th week in a row where they've just been losing points, going down that table. Our biggest decrease in overall rank was FP Hell, managed by Noah Silot. They fell 1,419,000 positions in the global market, or rather in the global table. But unlike previous weeks, our global loss leader isn't our disappointing rank leader. This honor goes to Fesco FC, who dropped 82 places this week. When it comes to poorest performers, our poorest performer was manager Don't Mind, manager of Team Don't. They had 17 points. It's almost enough to make you quit. Oh, if I was this person, I'd be wondering, when does fantasy become fun? So, let me read out this team so that you can see it's not a bad team. Captain Haaland, 4 points. Solanke, 2 points. DCL, 2 points. In the midfield, Luis Diaz, 1 point. Bomo, 2 points. Saka, 0 points. Howard Bellis, 0 points. Trent, 2 points. Rico Lewis, 2 points. Gabriel, 1 point. Raya, 1 point. Painful. On the bench, just full zeros. Tana, who is the keeper, 0. Barco, who's on loan to Sevilla, 0. Sangare, 0. Philip, 0. Our second lowest was Vinny McCory, manager of Man City. And number 3 is the aforementioned Melita Elvis, manager of Ola FC, who got 19 points. With a wild card. Painful. When it comes to team value, my team, Team BV, I've lost 0.9 in value. But that's because I used my wild card and I lost players like Luis Diaz, who had gained an incredible amount of value. So, hey, stuff for me. On the other end of that spectrum, Eliud Njoroge has the team with the highest value, 102.4. Wow, well done to you. That is somebody who has not changed his team. The highest riser this week is manager Ibrahim Ali, who has risen 82 positions. Well done to you, sir. And of course, you know that means he was one of the top performers this week. He had 63 points. The top performing manager was manager KJ. Team name, 10 Hags to Riches. It's a funny name. He had 65 points, 5 points more than me. I feel good. So, in 10 Hags to Riches, he had Havertz and Haaland up top. Then he had Bruno Fernandes in the midfield, Harry Winks, who gave him 3, Garnacho who gave him 10, Haaland and Havertz gave him 2, Bruno Fernandes gave him 5. Then you have Mo Salah who gave him 24 points. He had Dunk who gave him 6, Vardiol who gave him 10, Anderson who gave him -2, and Trent who gave him 2. And in goal he had Pope who gave him 3 for a grand total of 65. Number 2 in our league was, in terms of points, was a tie between Hakim Noor and Majestic Lewis, who had 64 points. Number 4 was Ibrahim Ali, who had the highest rise. He had 63. And number 5 was Lawrence Agyapong, who had 62 points. In the global ranking, Majestic FC, or Majestic CF rather, rose by 2 million positions in the global rank. Congratulations to you. In this week's Don Clinton watch, Don Clinton is the person who is cemented last on our table. He lost 20 points this week, only to gain 31 points. So literally gained 11? I'm not sure why this person is even still playing this game. But hey, everybody's allowed to play how they want to play. They are now, having played every game week, have 141 points. Second last has 282. This person is better off having left their team untouched. The most popular captain choice in our group was Haaland. 173 of us chose him as captain. After Haaland, number 2 was Salah. 17 of us chose him as captain. Number 3 was Palmer. 13 of us chose him as captain. Number 4 was Saka. 12 of us chose him as captain. Number 5 was Havertz. 4 of us chose him as captain. Number 6 was Brennan Johnson, which is a tie between Johnson, Rashford, Solanke and Watkins. 2 managers each chose him as captain. I was part of the 173, and I know the majority of you listening were. So let's try to do better. Now, looking forward to the fixtures tomorrow. And I said tomorrow because the Premier League starts on Friday. There's an early kickoff, Leicester versus Nottingham Forest. Leicester came back to defeat Southampton 3-2. And they have been good, they have been impressive. They have scored every game week they have played so far. Them and Manchester City are the only teams that have kept scoring. In a way, they're kind of like Luton last season. Their head-to-head record is irrelevant because it's in the championship, and those two teams then and now are very different. Injured for this game, Chaudhry, Stolarik, Daka are injured for Leicester, Danilo, Sangare, and Morgan Gibbs-White are injured for Nottingham Forest. I'm going to call this game the Cooper Derby because Cooper managed Forest last season before he was sacked and replaced with Nuno Santo. Forest have been very good defensively, and their defense will really be tested in this game against high-flying Leicester. Buonanotte, Vardy, and of course Fatau, when brought on, will cause trouble. Leicester haven't really been great at defense, but they do have 2 clean sheets. But I would recommend Buonanotte as the first player you get into as you look into this fixture. On the Forest side, if you have Wood, keep him. He has been a solid performer. I have Sells in goal, so I'm going to keep him and hope for a clean sheet, even though I believe it'll be tough. It would be Wood, and then maybe Hudson-Odoi or Elanga. And if you're into the defense, I would say Aina or Sells. Forest have been solid so far. They've been solid at the back, and they will be looking to win this game. I think they are favourites for this game. On Saturday, we will have Aston Villa versus Bournemouth. Their recent 5 head-to-head reflects that Bournemouth have won 2, Villa have won 2, and they've drawn 1. Parity. Both teams are coming off good victories. Aston Villa just won in the Champions League. Watkins did not play. I believe he was being rested. No team has any injury to speak of yet. Only Philogene Bidas is suspended for this match, given the red card he got last game. Watkins, as usual, is a great pick from Aston Villa. Morgan Rogers is a great budget pick from Aston Villa. And then you can gamble on the defense with either the keeper in Emiliano Martinez or your pick of Luca Digne and his friends. The tricky thing about Bournemouth is that they seem to have scorers from everywhere. If you look at the last 5 goal scorers, you have Christie, Kluivert, then you have Evanilson, Ouattara, Semenyo, and then you have Semenyo, Cook, Sinistera. Only Semenyo has scored twice. So I would say Semenyo, let him be your first pick, and then pick any of the other names I've mentioned, because there isn't somebody yet who has stood out from the others. Although Evanilson is dangerous, and he is directly responsible for the 2 penalties. Trossard got him the through ball, which got Saliba sent off. And then Kiwi gave the back pass to Evanilson, which got him trouble and got him the penalty. So Evanilson is a troublemaker. Brentford versus Ipswich. Now, I know at this point in time, you should be knowing that Brentford have a good run of games, starting with Ipswich, in theory. You know, people thought that Arsenal's good run was going to see them starting to concede after this game week, but they've conceded like the last 3 or 4 game weeks in a row. I have a Brentford defender, and I know many of you will be getting into Brentford, and it is Mbomo who you should be getting into. Wissa has recovered from his ankle injury, and therefore he should be back. Speaking of injuries, Hickey, Gomez, Rodriguez, Da Silva, Jansen, and Henry are injuries for Brentford. For Ipswich, Hamadi, Twanzebe, Slicker, Kajust, Luongo are injured. If you're getting into Ipswich, Delap should be your first player. Then maybe Omari Hutchinson, and then Leif Davis. And if you're really gambling, their keeper, Ante Muric. For Brentford, it's Mbomo, Wissa, your pick of defenders. Wolves versus Brighton. Now, Wolves have endured a very difficult start to the season. I believe they will be okay. I believe this game versus Brighton is their last tough game before they get winnable fixtures. I believe that they were heavily, I don't know if the word is unfavored, but they were least likely to win those previous games that they had. But now, games at their level have arrived. So this might be the time to look into Strand Larsen, Cunha, Ait-Nouri. Those three, those are the best picks from that team. Brighton have a better record against them. They have won 3 of their last 5 matches against them. Wolves have only won 1 and they've drawn 1. So I believe Brighton will be the better team in this fixture. On the Brighton side, I'm not so sure what the status is of Welbeck. I believe he's injured. Webster is also injured. Milner is injured. João Pedro is injured. O'Reilly, Adingra and Solimarch are injured. From Wolves, Maypew is injured. Traore, Gonzalez, Hwang, Johnston, Kaladzic and Mosquera are still out injured. With Danny Boy out, it might mean that our boy Mitoma and Jorginho Rata and Mente would be the best players to have going forward, that is. At the back, Verbruggen got 10 points, so he did a good job against Newcastle. By the way, against Newcastle, I don't even know how they did not concede or even how they won that game. They just won that game by mistake. So they'll be looking to improve on that performance. And Jorginho, Mitoma are the best players, and Minte if he plays. Man City versus Southampton. Now, you would be a very brave man not to have Haaland as your captain. I cannot look at this fixture. Look at the league table. See Southampton at the bottom of the table. Well, just above Wolves, with 1 point. And somehow convince myself that Man City won't hammer them. Now, Man City will beat them. It's just a matter of how many. Now, Man City, John Stones has been proving to be a very good defender to have if he plays. He seems to score clutch goals. Vardiol is a top goal-scoring defender in 2024 in the Premier League. So, if you ever need an argument for Man City defenders, there you have it. Those are the 2 defenders to choose. Going forward, Haaland, Savinho, best players to choose. Now, Haaland has been struggling of late. I've been trying to read about it, and what people are saying is that, which is something I've told you in the past, when people do not create chances for him, he cannot score. He's not the type of player who will just grab the ball, dribble like Messi and go and score. He needs you to set up the plate for him. And in the past, I have really cried about how every time Doku plays with Haaland, it's like he's meeting him for the first time. Now, Foden started in the Champions League earlier this week and he scored. I believe just him coming back into the field will help Haaland be better. KDB is likely to return as well. All of these returns only mean good things for Haaland. Of course, Rodri is still out, but I think that just people not named Doku will give the ball to Haaland. Walker, Bob, and Rodri are out. For Southampton, Fraser is suspended given the red card that caused them the game. Bazunu is out. Larios is out. Stewart and Smallbone are out. If you are choosing a Southampton player like I have Archer, I'm going to play him. Man City somehow they've conceded 4 goals in the last 7 games, and they've conceded first in 4 of those last 7 games. So I am going to be hoping that it is Archer who will score. If you are to choose other players from that team, I would encourage you to choose Dibbling and Aribo in either order. Dibbling scored in the game before this one, but Aribo scored in the last one. This should be City's game. I don't see why you would be entering into Southampton players in this particular fixture. Everton versus Fulham. Looking at the injuries. For Everton, Broja, Garner, Branthwaite, Lindstrom, Irogbunam, Chermiti. are still injured. For Fulham, Anderson is suspended, Cuenca, Lukic, Castagne, and Vinicius are injured. In the previous 5 games, 2 draws and 3 wins for Fulham. Fulham are highly favoured in this fixture. So, Raul Jimenez is the first pick from the Fulham side. The first pick. If the only pick. In 2 of the 3 fixtures that they drew, that Fulham won, they kept a clean sheet. So this wouldn't be a bad game to have Leno or Robinson or whoever your favoured Fulham defender is. On the other end, Yeahh, Dwight McNeil, and your Everton defender. It might be Pickford, it might be Keane, it might be Mikolenko. This is the kind of game that Fulham can draw. It's also the kind of game that Everton can draw, the kind of game that Everton can win as well. And those would be the people who would make the most difference in this fixture. On Sunday, there'll be very many good games. The 2 marquee games would be Chelsea versus Newcastle, and then, of course, the marquee game, Arsenal versus Liverpool. Then you have a London derby with Crystal Palace versus Tottenham, and Manchester United versus West Ham. All of these are great fixtures. So, let's start at Chelsea versus Newcastle. Chelsea were impressive last time out against Liverpool. They had a few injuries at the back, or rather a few suspensions that caused people to miss the game at the back, and that might have influenced the outcome of the game. Newcastle are not easy customers, and Newcastle were very unlucky against Brighton last time out. Isak is back, he should have scored. There were so many things, it felt like they were just told by the football gods that this is not your game. So they will be hoping for a similar performance with a better result. Same can go for Chelsea. If their players are back and they put in the same performance, they could get a better result. The recent 5 fixtures see Chelsea draw twice, Newcastle win twice, and Chelsea win once. Last season, Chelsea won 1 game 3-2, and Newcastle won 1 game 4-1. Newcastle won the game at home, Chelsea won the game at home. So if that is the kind of logic you want to go with, then maybe Newcastle are slightly favoured to win this game at home. Newcastle have had a better record at home than away following last season. Now, Newcastle have not been fluid, and it's hard to pick good performances or other performers from their team. However, if you were to choose, I would say that you have a defender, Fabian Schär. I know, very random. Isak, Gordon, Barnes. That's it. Although Barnes played, not Harvey Barnes, but Dan Burn, played really well against Brighton. He played really well. If you watch that match, the eye test, he was amazing. But they still lost. And this game, it seems when I look at the previous encounters between the 2 teams, each team scores. So there are goals in them. So this is not a game for a clean sheet. So maybe not Schär. But if you're looking for a defender who could score, it's Schär. On the Chelsea side, the 2 best Chelsea players are Nicholas Jackson and Palmer. Palmer has that 4-game haul or 4-goal game, which has skewed his stats. But really, Nicholas Jackson has been performing every game. Then Palmer, and then Madueke. Chelsea defense hasn't been bad this season, and I don't blame many of you for having the Chelsea keeper and a random one of the defenders. In terms of injuries, Newcastle, Wilson is out, Lascelles is out, Trippier is doubtful, Dubravka is out, Target is out, Botman still out. On Chelsea's side, it's just Chilwell. Crystal Palace versus Spurs. Now, Spurs were very powerful last time out. They went out and really destroyed West Ham after making the change at halftime. Football really is a game of 2 halves. Crystal Palace were beaten 1-0. by Forest. Crystal Palace are in horrible form. They are a better team than they're showing, but they just do not have it together. I fear that their manager might be the first one to be sacked this season, if not the West Ham manager. Tottenham have won each of their last 5 fixtures, and I believe they're favourites for this game. And from their team, I would say Son, should he play, because he is doubtful. Also, on the Crystal Palace side, Franca, Richards, Doucouré, Riyad are all unavailable. For Spurs, it's just Son who is doubtful. He may or may not play. But should he play, he would be a great pick. Him, Brennan Johnson, Kulusevski. If you have Solanke, that's fine as well. I struggle to recommend players from their defense, but Crystal Palace really struggle to score. So this might be the kind of game where they keep a clean sheet because of Crystal Palace's lack of ability, more than their own defensive strength, if that makes any sense. So if you're going to invest in their defense, then you have Pedro Porro, Udogie, Romero. I mean, those are all really good options. And the keeper, of course. From the Palace side, it is no longer worth it to invest in any of their players. They are just underperforming. Their last goal scorers in the Premier League were in September, nearly a month ago. It was Yeahh and Mateta. I can no longer even recommend Eze, but since there's no one else, I'll just have to put Eze as the third person. This just goes to show you the impact losing a player can have on your team, especially when you're at the bottom end of the table. And also testament to what Man City do in terms of Pep. If you think about the turnover that he has had, and they still maintain the quality, it's not easy. West Ham versus Manchester United. Manchester United have won 3 of their last 5 encounters, and West Ham have won the other 2. West Ham tend to win at home, and Manchester United tend to win at home. This game is at West Ham's home, so maybe West Ham are slightly favoured. Both of these teams are really struggling. Manchester United have only scored more goals than Southampton and Ipswich. And Crystal Palace, of course. They have really been finding it difficult to score. But they looked impressive last time out. Garnacho was good, Rashford was good, and those would be the top 2 players I would recommend in this fixture. They looked the better team against Brentford, and maybe that is the uptick in form, or as some are calling this fixture, El Sakiko. If they lose, definitely people will be like, oh, time for this man to be fired. Haaland scored in the last game, and he would be somebody worth recommending as well, if you're looking to get into Manchester United's assets. Onana has still kept the most clean sheets, and he could keep one in this game. Kudus and Fulkrug are unavailable for this next game. For Manchester United, Maguire is unavailable. Evans and Casemiro are doubtful. Mainu, Yoro, Shaw, Mount, and Malacia are injured. At this point, I'm wondering if Malacia is a real football player. He might just be scamming guys. On the West Ham end, I have Antonio. I have him for money reasons, not because I actually want him. So I would recommend Bowen, Paqueta, and Souček. Now the marquee game of the weekend. Saving the best for last. Arsenal versus Liverpool. Both of these teams have just played in Europe and have come out relatively unscathed. Saliba is of course suspended. Saka will be doubtful. Arteta is seeming to say that he may not play, but we never know. Timber may not play. Tierney is out. Odegaard is out. Calafiori picked up an injury. He is out. On the Liverpool side, Alisson Becker is still out. Jota is doubtful. Chiesa is doubtful. Harvey Elliott is out. In their last 5 fixtures in the Premier League, Arsenal have won twice, drawn twice, and lost once, meaning that they're slightly favoured in this fixture. Will Slot add a new element to this encounter? Now, Arsenal have key suspensions and injuries. If Saka doesn't play and Saliba doesn't play, I'm not convinced that Arsenal are as strong as we think they are. I mean, they just capitulated to Bournemouth, but then that's 10 men. It's a different story. However, without Saliba, if Kiwior is going to be the one replacing him with those mistakes, having said that Saliba did make a mistake, but there's no replacement for Saliba. He's their Haaland at the back. Just like if Haaland goes down, who was going to sub him? There's no replacement. That's how big Saliba is at the back for Arsenal, which is also one of the reasons I'd been encouraging people to get off of their defense. They still have been conceding with him. And I will reiterate that as I make my recommendations. Ease your holding of Arsenal defenders. Get off them a little bit. At this point going forward, all you really have now, if Saka does not play, is Havertz and Martinelli and Trossard. That's about it. On the Liverpool side, Jota may be out. I don't know if this means Luis Diaz will start, but Salah will play. If you don't have Salah, maybe Diaz now will play if Jota is not going to be playing. And then Nunez or Gakpo. This is not a game to have defenders. Looking at the FDR, fixture difficulty ratings, Arsenal's next 5 fixtures are Liverpool, Newcastle, Chelsea, Forest, and West Ham. It starts hard, gets easier, but not easier like they're playing Ipswich, but it's difficult basically. So still stay away from their defenders. Aston Villa have Bournemouth, Tottenham, Liverpool, Crystal Palace, and Chelsea. It gets more difficult. So I'll be easing off from their backline. Bournemouth have Aston Villa, Man City, Brentford, Brighton, and Wolves. So Aston Villa difficult, Man City difficult, then it becomes winnable games. Brentford have Ipswich, Fulham, Bournemouth, Everton, Leicester. Great fixtures. Brighton have Wolves, which should be fine. Then they have Liverpool, Man City, which will be tricky fixtures. Then they have Bournemouth and Southampton. So it's a mixed bag. Chelsea have Newcastle, Manchester United, Arsenal, Leicester, Aston Villa. Those are not easy fixtures. Crystal Palace have Spurs, and then they have Wolves, Fulham, Aston Villa, Newcastle. If this was last season, these would be winnable games, but right now, it doesn't seem like an easy game exists for them. Everton have friendly fixtures. They have Fulham, Southampton, West Ham, Brentford, and Man U. These are all results that they can get something from. Fulham have Everton, Brentford, Crystal Palace, Wolves, Spurs. These are all favourable fixtures for them. Ipswich have Brentford, Leicester, Spurs, Man United, Forest. There's no such thing as easy fixtures for them, so this will be fine, I guess. Leicester have Forest, Ipswich, Man U, Chelsea, Brentford. Winnable fixtures if you ask me. Liverpool have Arsenal, Brighton, Villa, Southampton, Man City. Apart from the Southampton game, I would get off their defenders. Man City have Southampton, Bournemouth, Brighton, Spurs, Liverpool. It just increases in difficulty nicely for them. Man United have West Ham, Chelsea, Leicester, Ipswich, Everton. Apart from Chelsea, those are all good fixtures for them. They should build a run over here. Newcastle have Chelsea, Arsenal, Forest, West Ham, Crystal Palace. Tricky fixtures all across, apart from the Crystal Palace one. Forest have Leicester, West Ham, Newcastle, Arsenal, and Ipswich. Outside Arsenal, they could win all of these games. And of course, Newcastle. Southampton have City, Everton, Wolves, Liverpool, Brighton. All games are difficult for them. They'll be lucky to get anything. Spurs have Palace, Villa, Ipswich, City, and Fulham. mixed bag. They can win all of those games, apart from City, and they could draw all of these games. West Ham have Man United, Forest, Everton, Newcastle, Arsenal. This is a kind of period which could help you think better or worse about Lopetegui. I think this next 5 games will seal his fate. Wolves have Brighton, and then they have Crystal Palace, Southampton, Fulham, and Bournemouth. I call this their recovery period. I believe this is when we'll start to see Wolves getting into some sort of form. That should help you have an idea of how to plan your next 5 fixtures or your next month. When it comes to choosing a captain, there are a few options. So let's start by Friday. You have Leicester versus Nottingham Forest. Given his recent form, Wood is a decent captain choice. Aston Villa versus Bournemouth, Watkins is a reasonable captain choice. Brentford Ipswich, I would say Mbeumo is a good option over there. Brighton Wolves, I wouldn't really be choosing a captain from this game. Man City Southampton, Haaland will be a good captain choice. Fulham Everton, given his form, Raul Jimenez wouldn't be a bad captain. Chelsea versus Newcastle, I really wouldn't choose a captain out of these other fixtures from this game. Spurs, Crystal Palace, if Son or Brennan Johnson are available, Son captain, Brennan Johnson also possible, but I would be hesitant. West Ham Man U, I wouldn't choose a captain. Arsenal Liverpool, if Saka was available, I would choose him as captain. And Salah, I would choose him as captain. And those are the captain choices. Salah, Saka, Son, Brennan Johnson, Raul Jimenez, Haaland, Mbeumo, Watkins, and Wood. Those are the most likely to be the best captain choices. The international break recovery was tough, and we're hoping for a better week in Gameweek 9. I wish you all well. Choose wisely, and remember, the game week starts tomorrow. Bye.